One new feature in 2024 is a simplification of the part browser, especially when dealing with connectors. With previous versions, when some geometries were moved into connectors, you had to deal with connector group entities within the part browser, and somehow that could cause some confusion. So starting 2024, connectors will be stored directly under parts. So just as a short demo, let me isolate the connectors here. And what I will do is directly go to fasteners, make sure on the realization that the number of layers is automatic. I want to links with parts all, and if I take these 4 ones, you can see that it's already identified and that I can change my realization. It will be a bolt with length 15 millimeters, and I can hit on play. If I go back to the parts directly and select my look at my part in my part browser, you see that these connectors are still treated as parts directly. You can save the representation if you want to say that it is a connector representation. This is something that you can do easily. Representation, save, and say that you want to save it as a connector, for instance. And here it is. One of the improvements we brought in 2024 is about the penetration and intersection tool that can find under the validate ribbon. For the tool by itself and what happens behind the scene, there was no improvements because the penetrations and the intersections are already computed in quite an accurate way for all the different solvers. And for those who were not aware yet, we introduced in 2023 for LS-DYNA the possibility to load the DYNA solver file in order to read the penetration. So what we changed basically were 2 things related to usability. So now you have a guide bar which allows you to run your penetration checks. You can select groups, which are your contacts, elements, components, or parts. Parts is one of the new feature. You can run the check. You will have on the left-hand side on the browser, you will have information about the different penetrations. So there are different methods from the automatic one. I could do just a fixal here in order to check or to show everything at once. Or I could do one by one. You have the possibility to recheck. You have either you can auto fix one by one. You can do a manual fix, which means that you will get access to the move tool in order to move some of the nodes. So it will be up to you to decide manually how to do it. And you can decide to lock an entity. So there will be no modification in the nodes. For this entity, it will just be entity 2 which will be modified. So if I just go with these 2 ones, go to recheck. Oh, sorry, I wanted to fix them. I can auto-fix from the browser, by the way. Auto-fix. So it may take a couple of seconds depending on, and here it is, it has been already done. And the penetration is done. So here's one new features of version 2024. We also continue to bring some improvements to free-body diagram, especially the fact to harmonize the UI user interface with all the other tools within HyperMesh. So starting here, I can create a free-body group. The nice thing with FreeBody Group is that you do not need anymore to create your section one by one. What you can say is, okay, let me start with the first node, go to a final node, whatever. Okay, let's say this one, for instance, and validate and say that you want X cut. So here let's start with 10 cut, and I will focus on this component for performance reason. Close. And now let's say that I want to do a free body plot. I can hit the plus, create a free body plot component. Let's focus on the Z one. And I will display. And for this, I will use a free body group, which is the free body group that I just previously created. And then I will be able to plot the results directly on the component. The nice thing about it, whether you discuss plotting vectors or whatever, is thanks to the FreeBody group that you can retrieve from the FreeBody group browser, you can almost instantaneously change your number of cuts, and you will get an automatic update of your attributes and other of the results. Among the improvements from 2024, we can also mention about improvements regarding the performances, especially for two main topics. Topic number one is about morphing. I will be able to run here a short demo. So here I have solid mesh with different holes, and what I want to do, for instance, is to change the size of the holes. So for those who are not familiar with morphing yet, to deal with 3D holes, we need to first extract the faces. So let me go to faces, take all my elements, validate, and then I can go to morphing, go to free, and here I will select multiple faces. So you can use Alt. No, you do not have to use the Alt, by the way. Sorry. You can pick as many faces as you want. Did I pick this one here properly? 5. Which one did I miss? 6. Okay, there's still a few moments where, because here I'm in automatic, and I will take also this one, let's say. Just to show how efficient it is with the latest, with 2024. So you see this model. So again, sometimes for computation being done as soon as I select new faces, because HyperMesh is recomputed in the background the elements to be morphed and the anchors. So now I have my 8 holes. I have my manipulator, which is in its default mode, which is translate, rotate, and I will switch to this normal offset manipulator because there were some holes detected. And here I can just say, okay, I want a new value, distance of 1. And you can see on this model, it's pretty fast, it's pretty instantaneous. Another improvement that we have as a matter of performance is linked to composites, especially a large number of composites. We had significant feedbacks regarding loss of performances with composites. In the previous versions, we solved a lot of them in 2024. So if you have model with large number of plays, large number of laminates, please feel free to test 2024 and to share any feedback. Among the changes brought in 2024, we can speak about some of interest for the mesh. So let's start with 1D mesh. The line mesh was already existing in the previous version, but there was a feature that was available in classic interface, which we didn't introduce back yet, which is the possibility to section directly a node list. So here I can basically just pick nodes one by one or by pass. And I can change the options here, for instance, saying, okay, I want a density value of 1, and I can get mesh done. So quite a simple, but it was a required feature that we reintroduced back. In 2D mesh, so let me change of page because I will change demonstration. The default 2D method now has been moved to batch measure because we consider that batch measure has been introduced something like version 10, 11, or maybe earlier. So it is reliable, it is robust, it is efficient. Yes, you need to tune your parameter criteria file, but this helps eventually to save a lot of time. So we really want to support our users migrating to manual mesh workflows and to go for automated mesh workflows, which still allows then manual edition if needed. That said, if you want to move from batch measure and get back to the historical AutoMesh, it is now renamed as Freeform. So here you can see you can retrieve your hold parameters, you can change the density, etc., etc. So AutoMesh is now Freeform and batch measure is now the default. Let's go to 3D mesh after 1D and 2D mesh, and one of the changes is about XR. The XR algorithm is not available anymore in the 3D ribbon. It's in topology, and it's under extrude. So you can select either surfaces, elements, facets. So if you're picking surfaces, make sure that you have a mesh on it, and you can define your direction of extrusion with a distance, and you will get your mesh done. As I got the request once, you can, if you have a solid mesh, so here on this face, I just have a solid mesh, you can also select facets directly. So here I can take this facet and again extrude it from 20 millimeter.
Hi, as you may know, in HyperMesh 2023, you can easily synchronize your instances of the same port in order to have the same representation of your ports. But there is one limitation: you cannot synchronize instances of multiple ports in the same time. In HyperMesh 2024, this limitation is no more, and you can now easily synchronize multiple instances of multiple ports at the same time. Moreover, we have implemented new settings in order to better control the way to synchronize instances. You can define different methods: non-empty by default, same representation, all loaded, or all. Let me show you all of that in a demonstration. This model contains two ports and multiple instances. The blue port is called left outer, has one instance, and the yellow port, which is called left inner, has 4 instances. For both of them, some representation are already available from the session: the common representation, the NVH 5mm and NVH 10mm. Let's load for both of them the NVH 10mm representation. Now, in HyperMesh 2024, I can easily synchronize all the instances of multiple ports at the same time. Let's select the two ports, right-click, and ask to synchronize the representation. And all instances are now synchronized. Let's now talk about the synchronized settings, and for that, let's focus on the left inner ports. Let me bring some modification and load different representation for my different instances. Let's say I would like to load the CAD representation for the left side port. Here we go. Let's say I would like to unload the representation for this one on the right side. And let's say I would like to change this representation, load the NVH 5 mm for this one on the left side. Okay? So what if I bring some modification to one instance? For example, let's go to the edit element, split, and split with layer to refine a little bit the mesh on this green port. So let's have a look on the synchronize settings. By default, the method is set to non-empty. But let's first have a look on the same representation method. So this method will synchronize instances of the same representation only. So if I select the green port, and if I ask to synchronize instances, only the port with the NVH 10 mm representation loaded will be updated. So let's have a look, synchronize, and here we go, only the two green ports are updated, not the two ports on the left side. Okay, let's change the settings, synchronize settings, and let's ask to use the all loaded method. This method will, as you can see, synchronize all the instances of the loaded port. Okay, let me now reload other representation for the two left ports. Let's reload, for instance, the CAD representation, whatever. Here we go. Now, in order to highlight the settings called non-empty, let's activate this method. Let's make these instances, the instance number 4, as a current in order to work on that. So for the moment, this port is empty and doesn't have any representation loaded into the session. That's why this instance was not updated using the all loaded settings. But what if I already have some entity inside this port? So let's, for instance, create some dummy square anywhere inside this port. Now this port is not empty, but still doesn't have any representation loaded. Whatever, if you have defined as the settings the non-empty method, now all the ports which is not empty will be synchronized. So if I reselect the NVH 10 mm representation and ask to synchronize everything, all the ports, even the one that is not loaded but which is not empty, will be updated. Okay? And the last one, which is quite obvious, it is the all, which will basically update all the instances, whatever the initial status.
One of the improvements we brought in 2024 is about the entity editor. In the previous version up to 2023, when you wanted to edit property or material, either you could do it from the browser and then you go to the entity editor, or you could select it in the graphic area, right-click, edit, and then you had a pop-up. From 2024, we harmonized, everything is going to the entity editor, and the entity editor has been made as an independent area regarding the browser, which means you could have your entity editor on the fly, on the right-hand side, which I don't like a lot because that reduces the graphic area. You can keep it this way, and the point is then you can go to any property. So let's go to my properties, for instance, double click and pick any property, and you can change. You give all the same attributes, all the same properties as previously, which means if you select multiple properties, so let me take properties of the same type, you will see the command of the different attributes between both. So here's strange, okay. Surface, here you see that there are some parameters that are different. Eye pinch, the thickness for this case is the same, so let me pick a third one, and here you see the thickness is different. If you do it from the GUI instead now, properties, remember that in the previous version you had to right-click edit. Now the entity editor is automatically popping up whatever the browser which is open. This can change a little bit if you want to, the way you can work. So let's take a scenario and let me show you one way you could do it now with the entity editor with a different, slightly different layout. So let's have a use case. I want all my shell properties with thickness 4.4 to move to 4.45. What I need to do first is to go to my CAD image, sort by thickness. So I could scroll this way, or I could say thickness equal 4.4. There should be some with 4.4. And here I have all my thickness with control 4.4, and I could say Control A and just send the thickness and say 4.45. So this is the way basically everyone always did. Look, using the browser to filter the entities of interest, and then getting down in the entity editor. One proposal, and keep in mind it's just a proposal. It does not intend to replace what you do if you're okay with the way you're doing it, but is to use the entity editor as a full area and to browse your model not from the browser anymore, but from the idle mode, from the graphic area. So here again, properties, and I have access to almost all the same capabilities. So here I can filter here directly, thickness equal 4.4, taking the same. Oh, sorry, 4.45, and I say Control A, okay, and here I can revert back to 4.4. So in fact, if I looked a little bit at what was available in the past and what we can do now, we could now really use the idle mode and the graphic area to browse the entities, to look at the different entities, filter them, and have this left-hand side instead of being the browser entity, which allow you to browse the entity and then go back to the graphic area. To edit the entities, we could revert the approach. There is no obligation at all. It's just different ways of working, but both are working fine. So feel free to use the one you're the more at ease with.